My name is Brother Samuel. This is a day in my life. Yesterday we got a break from the fasting of Lent to celebrate the passing of St. Benedict as a high solemnity. We had solemn vespers in the evening with a big buffet dinner with guests of the various monks come to help us celebrate. On the weekdays, morning starts at 5 a.m. when the first buzzer goes off. Morning prayer is at 5:20. We gather in the chapel to sing the Office of Readings and Lauds, which we do combined. After that, there's an hour and a half break before Mass, which some people use to eat breakfast. Others use it to take a nap. I'm one of those. I'm not a morning person. Mass is at 7:30. We gather in the outside the sacristy around 7:25 to get ready to process in, and then process in for Mass. What else are you going to do? The presider rotates through the various members of the community who are ordained as priests. One of the members of the community who is not ordained to the priesthood assists at the Mass as either an acolyte or deacon, depending on whether or not they're ordained to the diaconate. Since I'm ordained to the diaconate, at least for the next few months, I continue to do that. After Mass, those of us who didn't eat earlier go and have breakfast, and then begins the workday, which varies from person to person. For myself, I'm finishing up seminary this year, so I spend a lot of my workday over at the Catholic University. On days when I don't go to the university, I do chores around the monastery, but they take a variety of forms. One of the things that I do regularly is I make the sanctuary lamps for the community and for the school. And so that involves cleaning wax, because we recycle as many candle stubs as we can get our hands on. And so that wax has to be filtered out and cleaned so it can be reused. Melting down the wax, filling the jars, that sort of thing, once we get enough of them. For those who are on the monastery grounds, midday prayer is at 12:05. After that, most of the community heads in for lunch. Then the afternoon work begins. The disadvantage of being the youngest member of a community of old guys is that you know technology and they don't. So it's like, my computer doesn't work. What is it? Okay, I'll take a look. For some of the older monks who teach in the school, they spend a lot of their days down in the school doing, I guess, what you might call typical things that a teacher or administrator does, standing in front of the classroom, lecturing to students, answering questions, giving tests, grading them, that sort of thing. Vespers is in the evening around 6 p.m. Well, not around 6 p.m., at 6 p.m. And Vespers is always sung, so we go through the Psalms there. After Vespers, we have dinner. The evening meal is a formal meal during the week, and so we sit in silence by order of seniority with table reading. After dinner, the community helps clean up, put away the dishes and the food. And then we head to the calefactory for recreation and kind of a chance to chit-chat with each other, catch up on what's happened in different people's days. Some of us work on a puzzle sometimes, other times we just sit around and talk. At 7:30 we have Compline, so we're back in the church again. And when Compline's over around 7:45-ish, head off to our rooms, some to go to bed and some to do homework because we're students. Every Saturday night, in place of the Marian antiphon, we have a procession through the cloister while we sing a Marian litany. It's one of the ways in which we pray for vocations here for the monastery.
Pray for the disciple. Pray for the angels. Pray for the apostles and martyrs. Pray for the intercessors.
Then it's to bed and the whole cycle starts all over again the next day. The principal charism of Benedictines is the saying of the Divine Office, the praying in community. But as monks, we also work for a living. In our community, that work primarily takes the form of working in our school as either a teacher or administrator. We do have a few members of the community who also work outside of the school as chaplains and the like. In addition to community prayer, monks also spend time each day praying privately. In our community, that takes two forms. We have Lectio Divina, when the monk spends time reading something that is spiritually edifying. The other half of private prayer is private prayer. It doesn't have its own name, or the individual just spends time quietly praying for whatever intentions they have for themselves or for people who've asked them to pray for them. The community's limits, the community's schedule, make it so that your life doesn't get out of balance. Because you have that community responsibilities, those community elements, everything kind of stays on a relatively even key. It helps you keep a balance between those times when you want to be alone and those times when you really ought to be interacting with people. I'm one of those unusual people who have known since they were 4 years old that they had a religious vocation. Growing up, it was always, I'm going to be a priest when I grow up, and it wasn't anything that ever changed for me. When I went away to college, I kind of studied what I wanted to in order to kind of just see where my interests lie. And I found that I really liked studying physics and enjoyed academic life. And so I was like, okay, how do I put together a religious life and academic life? And having gone to a Benedictine high school, our high school, being a Benedictine seemed like kind of a natural fit for that. And so I read the Rule of St. Benedict and found it just kind of spoke to me as I could see myself in this rule. I could see myself living according to that rule for the rest of my life. And so I kind of knew at that point, without a doubt, that my religious vocation was a Benedictine vocation. In graduate school, as I'm working on my PhD, I kind of started, as I was getting close to finishing, I started thinking about where would I go. And so I actually applied to a different monastery, to St. Anselm in Manchester, where I've got family connections. Both my parents graduated from their college. My mom's cousin and her uncle are both monks in that community. And so I applied there first, and they turned me down, which was rather disappointing because I like New England weather. I don't so much like Washington, D.C. weather. But I came back to Washington, D.C. After it's one of those where I had finished my PhD, but I didn't have a job lined up because I was joining a monastery. And there I was, not joining that monastery I thought I was joining. So I came down to Washington, D.C., moved back in with my parents, got a job teaching at the University of Maryland for a year, made a few visits here during the course of that year, and kind of came to the conclusion that I wasn't quite sure that this was the right place, but I would regret it if I didn't try it out. And so I just kind of took a blind leap of faith, so to speak. And that was almost 7 years ago now. And here I am, fully professed and preparing for ordination in a couple of months. So it worked out. So my advice for someone starting a vocation is to start by taking time to listen to God. Spending time in prayer privately is an important way of first doing it, but then also talking to other people about what you're thinking and what your experiences in prayer are. The last thing is, don't expect a perfect solution to fall into your lap. Sometimes you just have to jump at something and rely on the fact that if it's wrong, God will smack you upside the head. Sometimes you just have to go for it, even when you're not entirely sure. I can honestly say I've never been happier in my life than what I am right now. I wasn't sure when I entered, but this has turned out to be the perfect place for me. It's one of those where I got where I am despite myself. God certainly knew what was going on even when I didn't, and it's been that way throughout several times in my life. And so finding the strength to let God handle things and not have to be, wait, I'm going to do this and then that and then this kind of thing is, I don't know, what do you want me to do? Is it always a challenge for me? But in those moments where I do manage to let go, God gives me exactly what I need.